So in this video, it's still a week 5 video. It says exception handling here, but we're going to talk about events. We're kind of lumping those together. They're not strictly that related, but they're both different ways of sending interactions between business logic and the presentation tier. So when working with events, it's much the way we write event handlers for handling the event of a button being clicked or text being changed or something like that. We can create events in classes so that they send signals to the presentation tier, which you can then handle with an event handler. We talked about this earlier in the semester when we were talking about class definitions and abstraction. We talked about classes usually contain events, which are things they do to signal other aspects of an application of their environment. Just as you would for a form object event, you can code an event handler to respond to the event being raised. You can code an event handler. It's actually not on this slide. This is kind of the first 3 steps here. You can almost think of using events in Visual Basic at least as a 4-step process. The first thing you have here is an event declaration. And it says friend event changed. So this is supposing that something in a product list is being changed. And this is just a declaration of an event that exists in the code for the class. So each object will have this event. When you want to raise the event, which is to say you want to make the event happen, just like clicking causes the button calculate click to take place, you need to raise the event. So you'll have some logic that might cause this event to be raised. And you would do that with raise event changed, and in this case it's using the keyword me to pass itself as a parameter. And as you can see here, that's because in this case the changed event, its parameter is the object itself of the product list class. To be able to see the events that an object might raise, the objects have to have a with events keyword in front of it, and that means it's going to be monitoring for instances of the event. When the object is declared, so in this case this is happening at the presentation tier, we're declaring the product list and we're saying that it has events. Moving forward with our classwork, we're going to have, for example, the piecework payroll having events. This is where things might get complicated for some of you. It could be that you have your class being instantiated, your worker object being created inside your button calculate click, because that's the only time it's been used so far. But in this case, the scope is going to have to be widened to module level scope so that that piecework object can exist both within button calculate click and the event handler for whatever event you're using. In Lab 2, for example, there's the option to include an event handler that would monitor especially productive or underproductive employees. And so that would have its own event handler, and that object has to exist at the class level for that to make sense. If you like the idea of thinking of this as a 4-step process, we've got the event being declared. This is happening at the business logic level. We've got the event being raised, also happening at the business logic level. You've got the object being declared as with events. This would be happening at the presentation tier. And then the final step is here. This is the actual event handler. So this is a sub, just like you would have for a button calculate being clicked. You can see here it handles an event called products.changed, and so that's handling the changed event of the products class. So anytime the changed event is raised, it's going to take these steps, and in this case it's just saving products and doing something called me.fill product list box, which we don't actually have here, but that's irrelevant. Any event raised by an object can be handled by the calling class. It's also possible to have an event that you don't have a handler for. Just like you could for a button include the click behavior or the mouse over behavior, or you could choose not to. So you can choose not to code an event handler, but generally that doesn't make sense. When you're defining your own business classes, presumably you would be defining those events with some kind of purpose. This is a really useful way to monitor important occurrences that aren't validation rule issues and respond accordingly. So for validation rule issues, it'll tend to be that you're using exceptions, where in this case it can be useful for, say, the piecework class. You are producing messages based on a worker overproducing and being considered for promotion, or underproducing and you're considering some kind of disciplinary action. So that's a bit about the implementation for events, which is fairly simple, I think. And next we'll look at an example in code.